Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Join me as we continue this special week of the TTT, celebrating the holidays in the letters from Father Christmas. For the third year straight, I believe, we start with a letter before the Christmas season. Although unlike last year, 1931, when the letter was dated October 31st, this 1932 letter comes from the end of November. Father Christmas writes, "My dear children, thank you for your nice letters. I have not forgotten you. I'm very late this year and very worried. A very funny thing has happened. The polar bear has disappeared, and I don't know where he is. I have not seen him since the beginning of this month, and I'm getting anxious. Tomorrow, December, the Christmas month, begins, and I don't know what I shall do without him. I'm glad you are all well and your many pets. The Snow Babies' holidays begin tomorrow. I wish Polar Bear was here to look after them. Love to Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla. Please send John my love when you write to him. Father N. Christmas." Now, while I was, and you might be tempted to see this as laying the groundwork for an excuse of not getting the right presents, right? Oh, I don't have any help. Polar Bear's gone. Tolkien is actually laying the groundwork for a wonderfully complex story that begins a long arc here in 1932. He just can't leave well enough alone and just write a letter. We've got Father Christmas and North Polar Bear. Now we've added NPB's cousins, and this year, well, you'll see what we added shortly. I'll also point out that it's the second year running where Father Christmas has asked the other kids to send John my love. Presumably at 15 years old, he's off at school. The other kids are 12, 8, and 3. Now, let's get to the letter. It's really long, and in fact, we'll have to look at this one tomorrow, too, as we wrap up this week of letters from Father Christmas in 1932. He writes, "My dear children, there is a lot to tell you. First of all, a Merry Christmas. But there have been lots of adventures you will want to hear about. It all began with the funny noises underground which started in the summer and got worse and worse. I was afraid an earthquake might happen. The North Polar Bear says he suspected what was wrong from the beginning. I only wish he had said something to me. And anyway, it can't be quite true, as he was fast asleep when it began and did not wake up till about Michael's birthday. However, he went off for a walk one day, at the end of November, I think, and never came back. About a fortnight ago, I began to be really worried, for after all, the dear old thing is really a lot of help, in spite of accidents, and very amusing. One Friday evening, December 9th, there was a bumping at the front door, and a snuffling. I thought he had come back and lost his key, as often before, but when I opened the door, there was another very old bear there, a very fat and funny-shaped one. Actually, it was the eldest of the few remaining cave bears, old Mr. Cave Bear himself. I had not seen him for centuries. "Do you want your North Polar Bear?" he said. "If you do, you had better come and get him." It turned out he was lost in the caves, belonging to Mr. Cave Bear, or so he says, not far from the ruins of my old house. He says he found a hole in the side of a hill and went inside because it was snowing. He slipped down a long slope and lots of rock fell after him, and he found he could not climb up or get out again. But almost at once he smelt goblin and became interested and started to explore. Not very wise, for of course goblins can't hurt him, but their caves are very dangerous. Naturally, he soon got quite lost, and the goblins shut off all their lights and made queer noises and false echoes. Goblins are to us very much what rats are to you, only worse because they're very clever, and only better because they are, in these parts, very few. We thought there were none left. Long ago, we had great trouble with them. That was about 1453, I believe, but we got the help of the gnomes, who are their greatest enemies, and cleared them out. Anyway, there was poor old Polar Bear lost in the dark all among them and all alone until he met Mr. Cave Bear, who lives there. Cave Bear can see pretty well in the dark, and he offered to take Polar Bear to his private back door. So they set off together, but the goblins were very excited and angry. Polar Bear had boxed one or two flat that came and poked him in the dark, and had said some very nasty things to them all. And they enticed him away by imitating Cave Bear's voice, which of course they know very well. So Polar Bear got into a frightful dark part, all full of different passages, and he lost Cave Bear, and Cave Bear lost him. "Light is what we need," said Cave Bear to me. So I got some of my special sparkling torches, which I sometimes use in my deepest cellars, and we set off that night. The caves are wonderful. I knew they were there, but not how many or how big they were. Of course, the goblins went off into the deepest holes and corners, and we soon found Polar Bear. He was getting quite long and thin with hunger, as he had been in the caves about a fortnight. He said, "I should soon have been able to squeeze through a goblin crack." Polar Bear himself was astonished when I brought light, for the most remarkable thing is that the walls of these caves are all covered with pictures, cut into the rock or painted on in red and brown and black. Some of them are very good, mostly of animals, and some are queer and some bad, and there are many strange marks, signs, and scribbles, some of which have a nasty look, and I am sure have something to do with black magic. Cave Bear says these caves belong to him, and have belonged to him or his family, since the days of his great multiplied by 10 grandfather. And the bears first had the idea of decorating the walls and used to scratch pictures on them of soft parts. It was useful for sharpening the claws. Then men came along. Imagine it. Cave Bear says there were lots about at one time, long ago, when the North Pole was somewhere else. That was long before my time, and I have never heard old Grandfather Yule mention it even, so I don't know if he's talking nonsense or not. Many of the pictures were done by these cavemen, the best ones almost life-size of animals, some of which have since disappeared. There are dragons and quite a lot of mammoths. Men also put some of the black marks in pictures there, but the goblins have scribbled all over the place. They can't draw well, and anyway, they like nasty, queer shapes best. North Polar Bear got quite excited when he saw all these things. He said, "These cave people could draw better than you, Daddy Noel. And wouldn't your young friends just like to see some really good pictures? Especially some properly drawn bears for a change." Rather rude, I thought, even if only a joke, as I take a lot of trouble over my Christmas pictures. Some of them take quite a minute to do, and though I only send them to special friends, I have a good many in different places. So just to show him, and to please you, I have copied a whole page from the wall of the chief central cave, and I send you a copy. Goblins! And a storyline involving gnomes that dates back to 1453. Interesting, maybe it's coincidence, but I find it interesting that Tolkien chose that year. It was the year that Constantinople fell to the Ottomans, ending the Byzantine Empire. It was the medieval incarnation of the Roman Empire. In fact, it was so significant that many historians used that mark as an end of the medieval period and a beginning of the early modern period of history. So I don't know. I'd love to know whether he thought about that and decided I'm going to make it 1453, or whether it was just, I just need to come up with a set of numbers that sound like a long time ago. Anyway, we also get cave drawings, including dragons and mammoths. We get goblin graffiti. We're getting a fuller and richer backstory every single letter. And this one's not even done. We're going to come back next week to wrap up this holiday week as we conclude the 1932 letter. For now, though, folks, that wraps it up for today in the letters from Father Christmas. But join me again tomorrow as we wrap up our time in these letters this year with a look at the rest of that 1932 letter. Learn how you can support the TTT by visiting patreon.com/TolkienTimes. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on your podcast apps, just follow or subscribe. And everybody, please follow @TolkienTimes on social media. And finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.